2 weeks into the basketball season, and things are going well for both the men's and women's basketball programs, and things are going well for Collyn Taylor, too, who has a new furry friend. And I guess that's how we'll lead the show off. That's Wrigley. A couple days old, right? A couple days you've had, I should say.
Yeah, we got her Sunday. She's about 8 weeks old. She's sleepy right now, but I would not feel comfortable not having her make her television debut 2 weeks into the Taylor household. My wife would absolutely kill me. Michaela would kill me if she didn't make it as well. So everyone say hello to Wrigley, and she's adorable. She's sleepy right now, so I'm going to put her down and let her go off, and she'll probably be under my legs or right next to me napping for the entirety of the show.
That's okay. We can have a dog. We can have a dog on to start this show because as we go into Tuesday night's game for the men's basketball program going up against Wofford, the positive Gamecock Twitter count is up to 9 days, trying to hit double digits. I think that'd be the first time in a long, long time, at least since we've done the tracker on Twitter. So why not have a dog start the show off? So he's Collyn Taylor. I'm Mike Yuba. This is Inside the Paint. We're going to begin with the women's basketball team because what they did yesterday, even though they will play UConn later on in the year, this was one of those matchups that it's a in-season tournament game. And unfortunately, sometimes because you have these in-season tournament games, you're not able to have the marquee primetime slot that it should deserve. So instead of playing, maybe 6 o'clock, and I say 6 because Monday Night Football, of course, you think about that. Instead of being able to put it on prime time, you had it at noon on a freaking Monday. Don't get me wrong, the people down in the Bahamas, I'm sure they had the time of their life. But with that all being said, Collyn, a win is a win, and the Gamecocks start the year off 6-0 as Dawn Staley and USC will be coming back to Columbia undefeated and taking care of business now against not just UConn, but they've done it against NC State, and they also did it against Oregon down there as well. Yeah,
and I mean, this was a testament to the depth, to the talent, to the everything that Dawn Staley's not only built, but has this year in her program. And I mean, we're talking about a Gamecock team that was down, not big, but big enough in the first half. UConn really kind of having their way at times. And then all of a sudden, boom, South Carolina cuts it to 3 at half and completely dominated the second half. And that was impressive. Destiny Littleton just hit a bunch of big shots. The defense came to play. That was as big a statement win as Dawn Staley's had in a while. And they didn't just, win, but they beat UConn going away. It wasn't like it was close to the end. They beat them going away. And that was really impressive to see.
And you mentioned that, and Collyn, I want to bring this stat up because I was thinking about this, especially as that second half just kept carrying on and USC continued to create separation. In USC's 6 games this season, they have outscored opponents in the second half 242 to 168. Now, that might not seem like it's that big because it's just 6 games in, but think about that gap. I mean, that's nearly 80 points right there in just a 6-game span. And that's some pretty good teams, too, we mentioned. We mentioned UConn, we mentioned Oregon, we mentioned NC State. This is a team that we knew going into the year had all the makeup of being able to be a team that can make a deep run in the season, deep playoff push as the season continues to roll on and get into SEC play. It's so early right now, but you have to be satisfied with what you're seeing. Aliyah Boston doing what we talked about at the beginning of the year, Collyn. She stepped up in a big way tonight, and that's exactly what you need from the junior.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you can't make the NCAA tournament in November, but you can make some statement wins in November. And South Carolina did that. That is a good UConn team, and South Carolina won going away, and your National Player of the Year candidate was National Player of the Year good. I think 22 points, 15 rebounds or something crazy like that against the, quite literally the second best team in the country as it stands right now. That's big time stuff. And the fact that she did that bodes well for South Carolina moving forward. That's not a team full of a bunch of women who are 5'8", 5'9" bigs trying to do stuff. There's some big women on that team. And for her to be able to play like she did and have the game she did speaks to just how good she is.
Yeah, you mentioned Boston, tremendous line, 22 points, 15 rebounds. The big thing with her is if she can just stay out of foul trouble, especially early in the game, this team's going to go extremely far. We know that. She just needs to be able to stay out of foul trouble. Some other outstanding performances. Zia Cook continues to just be phenomenal, 17 points. And then Destiny Henderson, she is such a critical part right now, especially since Raven Johnson went down at guard. Being able to play a little bit more, she's going to need to be able to step it up. And I mean, shoot, talk about people stepping up. Also, Destiny Littleton coming off the bench. She has just been phenomenal, added another 6 points, but it's one of those things, 15 minutes that she's played. When she's on the court, she's done a great job. If you want to hear more about this win and just women's basketball in general, go check out Chris Wilbon over on GamecockCentral.com. He does an outstanding job for us, and we'll continue to be able to give you great women's basketball coverage as the season goes on. We're obviously in that funky crossover season where you have football still going on and then basketball just started up. But once football season ends, the attention, of course, will shift more towards basketball. We will get you caught up more each and every week on women's basketball in a video format. Now, switching gears over to men's basketball, Collyn, I know on Monday, both you and I were at Frank Martin's weekly press conference. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we keep hearing, oh, Frank's back to being Frank. I can't remember too many times last year, and I understand those Zoom press conferences, where he came into a press conference and he was just, making his typical Frank jokes or his just goofy self. And he makes the Starbucks comment, people need to chill. He's lucky. The guy threw a Starbucks straw. For the people that don't know what I'm talking about, he was at Starbucks. He got a straw. The guy apparently, according to Frank, threw the straw at him. And he said he's lucky that the guy didn't meet Frank when Frank was 25 years old, because he would have handled it a little bit differently. And they both would have been having long holiday seasons. So with that all being said, it is clear as day that Frank is feeling like himself. We've been talking about that for quite some time, but I mean, 2 weeks into the season, it is evident that he's starting to be the Frank of old.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot about teams kind of taking the personality of their coach, and sometimes that can be cliche and, blah, 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 whatever. Team takes the personality of the coach. But I mean, you've seen that reflected with Frank Martin and a lot of his teams, and in terms of being tough-nosed, wanting to move up, move the ball quickly up the court, wanting to do a lot of that different stuff. And, you saw last year when he was lethargic, when he was kind of disconnected from everything, his team was at times lethargic and disconnected from everything. So you're seeing more of a return to Frank Martin basketball this year. We're sitting here right now, they're top 50 in defensive efficiency. They're rebounding the ball off on the offensive glass at a really high rate. They're not getting to the free throw line as much as obviously old Frank Martin teams have done, but they're ninth in adjusted tempo. And this looks and feels a lot more like what Frank Martin is and wants his team to be. Does that mean they're going to win 20 games? We don't know at this point. And frankly, Frank could care less about that number, right now. But it's gives South Carolina a fighting chance in a lot of these games to play like him, to have the personality of toughness, grit, and offensive rebounding and all that stuff, and defense. And that keeps you in most games. And then it's a matter of, do you have enough offense? Do you have enough shooting, which they did against UAB, they did against Western Kentucky, to win these games. And, there's some pieces there that you certainly feel comfortable going into this backstretch of non-con play, and then obviously into conference play.
Yeah, and just looking at some of these matchups, of course, the game tonight against Wofford. Wofford comes in 4-1 on the year, and then you have Rider that comes into town on Sunday. And then looking ahead just a little bit to December, you got Coastal Carolina that will be next, and then the Georgetown matchup will be an interesting one to be able to go up against Georgetown. Are they the Georgetown of old? Certainly not, but at the same time, too, they're a very talented team. And I think, look here, Collyn, I know you had a chance to be able to see it up close, and we hadn't had an opportunity to be able to talk about it on Inside the Paint. That loss against Princeton, I understand. Look, the scholarship thing, do they have scholarships? No, I get it. I understand all that. I understand the frustration. But at the same time, too, if people truly paid attention to that entire tournament, that entire weekend. Princeton gave a tremendous game against Minnesota the next night. I mean, they had their opportunities to be able to win that game. So I'm not trying to justify things because I understand, I'm not going to sit here every episode be like, all right, year 10, this how many tournaments, we get it. Okay. We understand what is at stake this year, most likely in terms of what South Carolina needs to do. But you need to be able to separate the two. You need to be able to separate the past and just look at this year for what it is. And Collyn, as we've mentioned before, 8 new scholarship players so far this season that joined the season. So far, what has your takeaways been in terms of how they've been able to mesh together? And what would you like to see a little bit more as we go into not just this Wofford game, but Rider coming up as well?
Yeah, and I'll say this too about Princeton. Took Minnesota to 2 overtimes, just beat Oregon State at Oregon State over the weekend. South Carolina, obviously, probably deeper and more talented, but that's a Princeton team that's pretty doggone good and is projected right now. I'm looking at KenPom to win 19 games this year. So pretty good Princeton team. But going back to it, you got to clean up the point guard position. You got to clean up your turnovers. They're turning the ball over on almost 24% of their offensive possessions this year, which is 318th nationally, according to KenPom. So that has to get better. They have to be able to attack zone defenses better than they have been. Frank Martin talked about that Monday, about the 1-3-1 zone. So you have to start figuring that stuff out, cleaning up the turnovers, and keep building on what you're doing defensively. You've shown a lot of good things defensively, and you shut down a really good UAB team off, for 15 minutes in that second half, or I guess that would be 35 minutes of game time. So offensively, you got to clean some things up. And then defensively, you just have to keep building and rebounding the ball like you have been. And there are signs of hope. If you can keep things going offensively, build defensively, and you get A.J. Wilson, a projected starter back, Keyshawn Bryant, preseason All-SEC type player, and depending on his role, potential 6th man of the year candidate this year in the league. You get those 2 guys back and incorporate them the way you think you can. This team has talent and pieces to work together. And it could be there's a feeling inside the program that this team has a chance to be pretty good. And it'll be interesting to see how that kind of comes to fruition once all of the pieces are healthy and gelling at the same time.
You mentioned Keyshawn Bryant and A.J. Wilson. I mean, let's talk about Wilson. Let's talk about Keyshawn real quick, because on Monday, one of the things that really stood out when Frank was speaking at his press conference is that Keyshawn has stepped up from a vocal leadership standpoint. That during practice in the past, maybe he wouldn't have said anything, but what it reminded me of a lot is that time period in terms of Sindarius Thornwell and the stories we've heard from Frank in the past about how during practice, if guys were lackadaisical, he'd pull them to the side. And that's exactly what Keyshawn did. There was a pair of guys he felt weren't bringing the energy. He pulled them aside and he got in their face a little bit, and he was able to get them to step up. And it just, look, that season, of course, is one of the most special seasons in all of South Carolina athletic history. I understand that. But it's good to be able to see that, because it seems like we've been missing that in the past from this team. With that being said, what do you expect from Wilson? I mean, this is something I think a lot of people have been waiting for. Unfortunately, his debut has been delayed for multiple reasons, but it seems like Tuesday night will be the night that he will finally make his debut.
Yeah, I feel bad for a guy like that I think he's my age, dang near. I think he's 24. So, and it's still in college basketball.
Sound like you're 30.
No, but he's just been in college for ever.
So you're jealous. I got you.
No, I'm jealous that I don't get to be in college. But I have a dog and AJ Wilson doesn't. So who's really winning here? No, but he's a guy that South Carolina went into this offseason when he committed, when they were doing summer workouts, when they were in the preseason before his back flared up the day before the Upstate game, with the idea that he was going to start. He was going to be your starting power forward in the system, practicing that, gelling together, spending all that time. And then you get there, find out he tweaked his back, and then you have to throw Josh Gray in there, and he's not ready for that moment because he's never practiced really at the 4. So you're trying to figure out ways to essentially tread water until he gets back. And he's obviously out longer than you anticipated, but he's someone that where South Carolina struggled this year, I mean, from game 1 to game 4, where we're sitting at right now, has been at that 4 position. And Wilson is smart. He's old, experienced, athletic, and should give you some of the physicality mixed with the veteran leadership, the veteran savvy, the experience, all of that, and athleticism to go along with it, that makes you feel comfortable about where you are and what you're playing there. And he'll be able to help protect the rim. He'll be able to help rebound the ball at a pretty high level for someone who's 6'7", 6'8". And if you get that and you continue to maintain what you have with Reese, what you have with Stevenson, Kusnard, and Levesque out there, I think it's going to be a big boost for South Carolina moving forward, because I think Wilson's a big piece of the puzzle that they prepared for in September, in October, before the season started, and really tread water essentially without him.
Collyn, you mentioned Erik Stevenson. What he did the other night, I think this is what Frank Martin had been talking about for quite some time, which was he can shoot. We've seen him do it in practice. I know you guys haven't seen it, whether it be the media, whether it be the fans, but he's been making those shots in practice. I know that once he starts to knock them down in a game, watch him catch fire. And he did exactly that the other night, hitting his first 3 threes. Is this something that you think is sustainable? Or is this one of those things where he goes out there each night and you don't truly know what you're going to get? Or is it too soon to be able to tell, you think?
I mean, I think it's a little too soon. I mean, basketball is a weird sample size sport, but I think that you should be able to get that from Stevenson night in and night out.
Mix in a water, pal. You're okay.
Yeah, I know. One of those down the wrong pipe things. We've all been there. We've regrouped. But yeah, no, Stevenson he gives you that scorer ability. He's got that mindset of who cares, the last shot.
Yeah.
What if I make the next one? And so he makes that. If he starts fast, all of a sudden, I'll say this about Erik. You know early on if he's going to be on that night or not. But that being said, even if he's not on from a scoring standpoint, he knows he came here to make shots. But let's be honest, his defensive rating is second best on the team in terms of the metrics used to kind of help judge some of the defensive metrics. Second best on the team. And the guy ahead of him is Javon Benson, who's only played 12 minutes. I mean, I'm looking at his other stuff. His defensive box plus minus best on the team by a whole 2 points there. So and his box plus minus on the whole is only behind Levesque, second on the team. So even though he's not necessarily, filling it up from 3 early in the season, he showed promise against UAB, and he does so many other things well on the court that you're going to still see a lot of Erik Stevenson moving forward, because not only does he play good defensively, he's a really good rebounder. He's a good rebounder for his size. He's a leader, man. They brought him in to lead, and he's really taken the reins on that and earned his teammates' trust, and is a big piece of just the leadership aspect of what Frank and that staff want.
Well, South Carolina takes on Wofford tonight, 7 p.m. over at Colonial Life Arena. You can watch that game on the SEC Network Plus, but if you can't, be sure to follow Collyn Taylor throughout the game over on Gamecock Central. Follow along on the forum. I will be at Carolina Calls with Shane Beamer. That is going from 7 to 8 at Backstreet's Grill. So if you go weekly or you want to go, it will not take place on Thursday because, of course, that's Thanksgiving. So they're sliding it up to tonight, and you can be able to catch Coach, and I'm sure it will be an absolute pack crowd. South Carolina, as I mentioned, playing tonight. Men's basketball, women's will be back in action at home on Friday to host Elon. That game will be at 3 p.m., and that game will also be aired on the SEC Network Plus. He's Collyn Taylor. I'm Mike Yuva. You guys have been watching Inside the Paint. Be sure to follow all your Gamecock news on GamecockCentral.com.